Least favorite show. Least favorite show that I've ever seen was,
Oh wow, we are going back to that.
yeah, it's a deep cut.
Me, I would have to. I just felt like it was the timing was questionable. Like, why did it come back? How did you start reviewing, Ryan?
Well, actually, I was just tapped by PalabasTayo sometime before the pandemic. And, it's interesting because we sort of like run around in the same circles. So I reviewed Katsuri by Tanghalang Pilipino. That was my very first review with PalabasTayo. And yeah, the rest is history. How about you?
When did I start? I started as a blogger
Okay.
in Blogspot, which is still alive.
Yes,
now.
yes.
And then that was in 2009 when I moved here to Manila for college. And then it was like 2 years later, this man from the Inquirer, Gibbs
Okay.
Studies, comes
Gibbs,
across,
yes.
comes across my blog, leaves a comment saying he liked my review of Rant 2011.
Nice, nice.
And then a year later, I think it was in 2012, late 2012, when the Inquirer decided to form a theater page. And then back then, it was the only broadsheet that had a dedicated theater page. And Gibbs recruited me to join the team. So I've been writing for the Inquirer since 2012. 2012 to 2020, just before the pandemic. And then I resumed writing sporadically after the theaters reopened. Yeah.
So a large part of it, actually, at least for me, and it's interesting that we sort of like define the journey as before the pandemic and after the pandemic. During the pandemic itself, it was interesting because while there was no theater, it was we really had like to find topics that we'd be able to write about. But that actually made it clear what the point of PalabasTayo and theater criticism as far as like what we do in the online space. Like you started out with a blog, and of course, when you look at your blog, it's like a kilometer long index. But for us during the time, it was we were just starting out. I remember that there was this one instance when we were supposed to review the band's visit. And unfortunately, that was one of the casualties of the pandemic where, they had to cancel the show. And from what I understood, there were a lot of tears all around. So I think that also explains why there's this explosion of theater. Immediately after, there's that unknown need or for more entertainment on stage.
Fun fact. At the band's visit was actually the last review I wrote.
Seriously?
Yes.
Okay.
It was, I think, March 9th or 10th, something like that. Rumors were going around that there was going to be a lockdown.
Yeah.
And Bobby, rest in peace, Bobby Garcia, reached out and said that if you want to see the show, we're doing a preview tonight. And they were supposed to do another preview the next day.
Yeah.
So I saw the show that night. It was basically ready to open.
Yeah.
Gorgeous show. And then the preview the next day just didn't happen because after we exited the theater, it had been announced that there was going to be a lockdown.
Oh my God. I was supposed to see the second preview because I couldn't make it to the first, but that's actually one of the things that I feel worst about because I really miss because I did hear really great things about that show. So, and then of course the last image of that is like basically Menchu crying during the time. Well, yeah. Right. So now we're going to do a bit of fast talk.
Okay, Tito Boy.
Right. So we're going to flash a category and then we're both supposed to give our one-liner.
Okay.
Or one-word answer.
Sure.
Okay. So the first category is overrated musical.
I can't think of any right now. Wait.
There are so many.
Overrated musical. I would have to go with Fiddler on the Roof.
For me, it's Hamilton.
Favorite critic, Anthony Lane. He's a film critic though. Yeah. But for theater, Sarah Holdren, Vulture.
For me, anyone from the New York Times. Intermission snacks. Yay or nay? Nay.
Nay.
That's just sit in your seat.
Yes.
Or go to the loo, but don't eat.
You know, when I was in Sydney for the past 4 months, it really bothered me that people were bringing drinks like wine, champagne, soft drinks to the theater.
I never understood it.
And they'd stand up mid-show. Like not even intermission because they had to go to the loo.
I mean, there's a reason why theater seats don't have cup holders. Just don't.
Yes. Dream show to review. Follies.
Dreamgirls. Least favorite show. Least favorite show that I've ever seen was Marco Polo.
Oh, wow. We are going back to that.
Yeah, it's a deep cut.
Oh, wow.
Marco Polo.
Me, I would have to go with something that stands out. Maybe Binondo. I just felt like the timing was questionable. Like, why did it come back?
A word you're tired of reading in reviews. Great.
I would say terrific, but I use that a lot as well. Theater viewing pet peeve. Probably when someone takes out their camera to take a photo mid-show. And I've seen that happen a lot here in Manila, sadly.
Yeah. For me, theater viewing pet peeve would be tardiness. Never be late for the theater. Theater is always on time.
Except
Should
that
be.
one time na umulan ng sobrang lakas at nalate ako sa Equus for like 5 minutes.
That's fine. I mean, if it's an act of God. So
Yes.
but the thing is, yeah, don't be late. Were you ever a performer? What was your background or involvement when it comes to theater?
The most that I've been as someone on the other side of the fence is part of the cast of our high school production of Mulan.
Okay.
I went to a Chinese school. So Mulan, based on the Disney movie.
Oh.
So it was like very amateur high school stuff. But my love for theater actually started with musical theater itself.
Okay.
Started with Les Mis, Phantom, and then Wicked and Spring Awakening. Those two musicals, which I consider formative for me. I come from Iloilo, which is a very good place to live in.
Yes.
With
I would agree.
no theatrical landscape whatsoever.
Oh.
There would be a few university shows,
Yes.
something like that, but there isn't really a theater landscape to speak of, which is, I would say, not surprising.
Yeah.
Given that most of it is concentrated in the Philippines, most of it is concentrated in Manila, of course.
It's interesting that you do, like you describe Iloilo, where it's a great place to live, but there's no theater landscape. I probably came from an even worse place for that. While I grew up in Metro Manila, I grew up in Malabon. So, which is like so far up north that people thought it was a province. So, and it kind of was. Although I was introduced to musical theater by an uncle of mine, who like gave me, I remember this, the very first Broadway album I actually had were like twin cassettes of The Phantom of the Opera. And then after that, I was just hooked. And then whenever we would go to the mall at the time, I would just scour the selection for any Broadway musical that I could find. So it started with Phantom, then yes, Les Mis, and then Evita, and then all of those things. So that's why even to this day, my greatest affinity for Broadway shows would always be those that were produced in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
I think those shows were formative for
For
a lot of people
Yeah.
in the Philippines, I would
Yes.
say.
Although, of course, there was the usual Sound of Music, Jesus Christ Superstar during Lent. I remember that. Those were great. I mean, in contrast to your involvement with theater, I was actually a part of it. In the sense that I was part of a cast of The Secret Garden by Repertory Philippines. That's the very first audition I actually went to. And I'm very happy to say, and I'm very grateful to actually have bagged it. And then I stayed with Rep for a couple of years. And then, of course, after a while, you sort of think this, or at least during the time, I was thinking this is like a mountain to climb. But after that, I was like, probably it's not. I mean, probably it's not for me. So I kind of went into marketing and everything. But I would always maintain that my time with Rep has always been one of the happiest times of my life. And that's actually where I'm coming from when I do reviews. It's always looking at it from the perspective of, an actor, and what are you really supposed to impart to your audience? What's the message?
Yeah.
Where's your truth?
Which production was this of The Secret Garden?
This was in 2001.
Okay.
The one with, well, I don't know, I just remembered it's yellow, but the thing is, it was with Michael Williams, Noel Rayos, all of these people. So and this was actually one of the few, or the last few shows in the William J. Shaw Theater before they closed it down.
Yeah, okay.
So that's something that I think Rep was exploring then, that they were also doing stuff with RCBC Theater. But The Secret Garden, I think, was one of the last 2 or 3 shows that they had there.
I suppose I come from a slightly different origin than you, not as a performer, but as a writer.
Yeah.
I write fiction, I write poetry. Though not a lot of that anymore nowadays. Also an academic now, an anthropologist.
Yeah.
So most of my writing is academic writing, social scientific writing.
Okay.
But I started out as a writer first before being a theater lover, if that makes sense. Reviewing theater sort of became like a sort of natural trajectory for me. When I started watching shows when I was here in college, it just felt like a natural thing to do, to watch a show and then to write about it afterwards, because how else are you going to process the experience?
Yeah.
Do you find the same thing?
Well, for me, actually, it's not so much, it's not, I think because I started out when I was in high school, I used to write fiction. And I never really gave up on it. I mean, but nowhere near perhaps the same level of technicality as other people, but it's just something that I really like to do. And for me, it was the merging of the two things that I enjoy most, theater and writing. But at the same time, it sort of, as we progress in terms of criticism for theater shows, it slowly became clear that there really is a duty to educate and to inform the broader theater-going public. Over the years, I've noticed, like, again, as I mentioned earlier, basically the explosion of this clamor for more shows, for better shows, from a completely new audience. It's interesting because even in the short span of 2 or 3 years when we were locked down during the pandemic, I'm seeing people go to or be very passionate about theater who weren't really passionate prior to the pandemic. It's as if they developed that kind of passion for it during the time when there was nothing, when nothing was happening.
Yeah.
So I suppose it's something that one of the things that whenever I do write reviews for the theater, I try to provide as much information, balanced basically with the criticism of the thing, laying down context and stuff like that.
I have to agree with that because I sort of approach it in a similar way. When I was doing theater reviewing for the Inquirer in those early years, I was actually also a med student at the University of the Philippines. I was approaching the theater first as something to get my mind off of med school.
Yes.
But at the same time, something that's also worth the precious time that I get with the time off. So I always approached it with this idea that this time should not only be precious, should
Yeah.
not only be worth it, but should also be something that other people might approach in that same way.
Yeah.
You know, this is our time that we spend in the theater, which can be spent anywhere else. I would love to see that time reciprocated, that
Yeah.
energy reciprocated by a good show.
Yes,
And if
actually.
it's not a good show, then why is it not a good show?
Yeah. Actually, I'm just surprised and well, in awe of the fact that you still had time to actually do, like, go to the shows and review them. It takes a lot of time to actually do these reviews.
yeah.
And I think that's something that people don't necessarily understand or realize. It's, you're going to sit through a show. You're going to sit through about like probably 2.5 hours. That's not even counting the commute going to, and of course the expense. And then when you get back home, you sort of like, you have to do research. You have to do all of these things and compose it in such a way that would really maximize the value that you're going to give. So, and you doing it while you were in med school, that's amazing. For me, it's like I went through law school, but the thing is there was no time for anything else.
Well, if it's any consolation, med school is, from what I've heard, so much easier than law school. I had a friend who also went to law school.
Yeah.
And he showed me their readings.
Oh yeah.
And I said, well, what is that for? And he said, this is for like the semester. And I was like, that pile is
For
the stuff that I studied for my board exams. There's another thing that people forget with theater reviewing is that it's actually an art.
Yes.
Which is, I would say, just as vital as creating itself. It's an act of creation. You're
Yes.
writing, but it's not just putting words on paper. It's about giving it flow, about giving it structure. And part of the goal of reviewing, I think, is not just about informing the public of the experience, but also historicizing the whole thing.
Yes.
You have to think 10, 20 years from now, how are people going to know about these shows?
Yes.
Because things disappear so quickly online. And then what do you have left?
Yes.
Reviews, write-ups. Those are the things, the ways that we are going to remember these shows from the past.
Yes. Actually, and also apart from that, as I mentioned earlier, in the course of like reviewing and researching about these certain shows, sometimes when you search, you can't find sources anymore.
Yes.
So I do definitely agree that it's really a play for legacy in by and large. And at the same time, of course, it's really meant to provide context. Contextualizing, like for example, if you see a show in 2000 and they revive the show in 2025, you would sort of want to have that reference. It's like how was it staged? What were the underlying philosophy behind it or the reason, and then compare it to now and how would it be different. Without theater criticism or without theater reviews, there's really, as you said, there's really no evidence of that ever happening. And you know what they say, if in Pixar it didn't happen, in theater it's because of the companies not preserving their productions for posterity. What's left is theater reviews.
Yeah, I can say that I've been doing this long enough because the stuff that I watched in those early days are now being staged again.
Are now being
Sweeney
revived,
Todd
yeah.
in 2009. We got Sweeney Todd in 2019. Rant last year when I saw it in 2010, and then the rerun, and now they did it again. Sideshow, we did that in 2018, and that feels like just a few years ago, but it's actually 7 years ago already.
Yeah, and I actually just want to add, there's another purpose for theater reviews, or like basically lifestyle reviews in general, because that actually also is meant to drive. It's meant to drive trends. Like for example, what we did with I remember when they dropped the album for Six. In in the streaming platforms and everything, we sort of like wrote about it, and then lo and behold, a couple of years later, Six comes to Manila, because it's like bringing the world to the attention of a singular person who reads that review or who reads that particular piece. I think that's one of the most important things, because that would actually drive what Filipinos would see eventually.
I have to agree with that. When we were doing the theater page in the Inquirer, there was this one instance that I can recall, and people just told me about this. The show was Angry Christ by UP
yes.
Playwrights Theater. This was in 2017.
Yes.
And I raved about it. And someone from the other side of the fence said that on the day that my review came out in the Inquirer, their phones rang nonstop in UP with people clamoring to see the show. So yeah, I guess there's still a purpose.
Yes.
Aside from all the things that we've said about historicizing things. Is this yours?
I'm not sure.
No, this
but
is
I don't
mine.
think it is. Well, he's still alive, so I think that's the thing.
This person must be sent to director prison now.